Hello, everybody. My name is Brad Walsh. I am the founder, host, and producer of the Empowerography podcast, a podcast that is globally rated in the top 2%, a platform that I created to help elevate and amplify the voices of women. I am here today to bring you episode 3 of Beyond the Mic, where I'm going to speak today about the importance of active listening. So I will jump right in. You know, how you always hear people say, everybody just wants to be heard, everybody just wants to be seen. Well, I can tell you that as a podcast host, never have truer words been spoken. I believe with all of my heart and soul, wholeheartedly, with every fiber of my being, that active listening, actually paying attention and listening to someone when they speak, is the absolute, hands down, most important thing that you need, or most important skill set that you need to possess as a podcast host. Listening to your guests is paramount. And when I say listen, I don't mean hear them, I mean really listen to your guests as they speak. Pay attention to what they're saying. I was shocked, and you might not believe this, but I've heard from many women who have been guests on my show, and they've told me that when they've been on other podcasts, they've felt like the host wasn't even listening or paying attention to them when they spoke. And when I say wasn't listening, I mean they felt like the host wasn't even paying attention to the words they were speaking. And for me, that's unbelievable and unfathomable. As a host, that's part of your duty, is to listen to your guests, to what they're telling you. It's funny because I did a poll a while back in my community, in my empowerography community, and I asked people to answer the poll of whether they think they're a good listener or not. And I knew before I even put the poll out, I figured that about 90% of the people would respond with, yes, I'm a good listener. And sure enough, that came true. I had a few that say, no, I'm not a great listener. And I think that's something that we all can work on, is listening to other people, and not listening because when you get into conversations, you hear, people are listening just to respond, just to speak their piece, just to get their opinion and get their words in, not to listen to hear the other people's or other person's opinion, which as a podcast host is absolutely paramount. As I said, you need to be able to listen to your guests. It is one of the most important things, in my opinion. It is your responsibility as a podcast host to listen and pay attention to your guests. You have to make your guests feel comfortable. That's your job. And one way of doing that, of making them feel comfortable, is listening to them. Make them feel special. Make them feel seen and heard. It is so important. I can't believe that there's podcast hosts out there that aren't really paying attention and listening to their guests. I once had a woman reach out to me after our episode. She said she was listening to the episode with her daughter in the car with her as they were driving. And they listened through to the whole episode. And the daughter commented on the fact that I was listening so well that I went back and referred or referenced a point in the conversation from earlier on. You should be able to do that as a podcast host, reference a point from previously in your episode or in your interview with that guest so that they know that they're seen and heard. It is so important. I cannot stress that enough. You have to pay attention and listen to your guests when they speak. This is so important. You can use whatever word you want to describe it, active listening. I know some people don't like that term, but listening, and not just to respond, listening to actually hear what they're saying. It is your duty to make your guests feel seen and heard. The spotlight, the interview, isn't about you. It's about spotlighting your guests. That's what the interview's for. So please, I ask you, I urge you, as a podcast host, listen to your guests when they're speaking. It will go a very long way. They will appreciate it, And again, this ties into my previous episode of Beyond the Mic. They will be more likely to recommend your platform to other people as potential guests and recommend them reaching out to you if they feel like they were listened to and heard. So please, again, I urge you, listen when your guests are speaking. It is your duty and your responsibility as a podcast host to pay attention to your guests. The show isn't about you, the show is about your guests. So make sure that your guests feel special, make sure they feel heard, and make sure they feel seen in that interview. It's your one major responsibility is to listen to your guests and to pay attention when they're speaking. I hope that you found this information informative, helpful. I would appreciate any comments below, any comments, any information, any tips, any thoughts on what you think about the episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I look forward to presenting the next episode where I'm going to speak about episode 4 will be focused on the importance of highlighting your guests, the importance of shining a light on your guests. This was part of it, and this will tie directly into the next episode and speak where I will speak about the importance of highlighting your guests on an interview show, on a podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you found this informative, valuable, inspirational. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I will put the link to check out my wait list for my learn to start your podcast from idea to implementation in 90 days or less. I will also put my link above the video for you to book in for a discovery call if you want to learn more about my programs, how I can help you with your podcast. And thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.